occasion indeed. We are thus united in celebrating leaders who triumphed under difficult conditions and against incredible odds. It was not easy at all to run businesses in the early 1960s and 1970s during a difficult period of oppression. Black business people faced restrictive laws and policies that deliberately suppressed black business in the urban areas. Black business people could not set up business in towns, but were limited to black townships. Even then, they were limited to the type of business they could establish. This was when the famous township corner shops or general dealers came to being, and they became an important feature of our lives. It was also extremely difficult under the homeland system to unite black business under one umbrella, as it divided black South Africans according to their ethnic groups, classifying those residing in homelands as non-South Africans, particularly to the homelands that became independent states, so to speak. Also during this time, the heavy hand of apartheid was visible, as many leaders of our liberation movement were either in jail, in exile, or were burned. In other words, not allowed to speak in the country of their birth. Despite all this, many black entrepreneurs worked hard and became household names and an inspiration indeed to all. We are therefore much pleased that today we are able to recognize these shining stars and beacons of hope against all odds during apartheid. We are also very proud that the ruling African National Congress played a historical and significant role in laying the foundation for black economic emancipation to take root. In fact, we all remember how the Tambo Mandela firm, the legal firm they ran, assisted Ubaba Richard Maponya when he suffered repressive apartheid laws affecting his business. As we honor these pioneers tonight, we also acknowledge the significant role played by organizations such as NAFCOC, the Black Management Forum, FABCOS, African Hawkers, and informal business and others in laying the foundation for the post-apartheid broad-based black economic empowerment policy of government today. These organizations soldiered on and demonstrated their determination never to give up the fight against racial exclusion and economic injustice over these years. In fact, these organizations at some point, they took decisions to visit the leadership of the ANC in Zambia, Lusaka, to discuss the struggle and the future of our country. They did this in the face of apartheid regime not wanting them to go to Zambia to meet the ANC. Once again, they demonstrated their clarity about the future and their bravery in the face of danger. I'm sure some stories will come as we navigate our democracy, the role they played, some of them, in underground structures of those who were fighting for freedom, what support they gave, and therefore what sacrifice they made. We are pleased that today that many black business owners have become business icons of our nation and continue to inspire young entrepreneurs. You have demonstrated that it is possible to succeed, especially now, in a free and democratic South Africa, with a government that has its mission, the emancipation of black people from economic bondage. Black entrepreneurs are succeeding in various sectors of our economy, including mining, information communication, communication technologies, agriculture, construction, and manufacturing. However, the struggle to deracialize the ownership and control of the economy and ensure the meaningful participation of the black majority continues. We have not yet reached our destination through economic emancipation. Our collective task is to fast-track economic transformation so that black business can be part of the mainstream and not be regarded as an alternative sector of the economy. In this regard, government continues to implement its policies aimed at the radical transformation of the economic landscape, including changing the patterns of ownership of the economy. These include the broad-based black economic empowerment laws aimed at ensuring the transformation of our economy, as well as ensuring that black people participate meaningfully in the mainstream of our economy. We regard our black economic empowerment legislation, including legislation aimed at opening up state procurement to black entrepreneurs and small businesses as a critical component of our national effort to banish poverty, joblessness, and inequality. We must emphasize that the uniqueness of the broad-based black economic empowerment policy is that its successful implementation requires both the public and the private sector to institutionalize and implement it with utmost vigor. In addition, I must reiterate that in order for the broad-based black economic empowerment policy to succeed in the public sector, government must use its procurement muscle to sustain and grow black businesses. This is because annually, through the public sector procurement system, government spends in the region of 500 billion rand on goods and services and construction works alone. In this regard, the buying power of the state is a powerful economic transformation tool. It can and must be used to advance black economic empowerment. In the past 5 years, as part of advancing broad-based black economic empowerment procurement, government amended the Preferential Procurement Policy Framework Act, or the PPPFA regulations, to provide for BEE preference points. As we have now realized, this amendment has not worked or led to the desired impact. Instead, we have now found that the preference points system prescribed in the PPPFA is rigid and is not responsive to government objectives. Due to these shortcomings, the preferential procurement regulations have failed to substantially reshape the skewed ownership and control of the South African economy. We would like to reiterate that government is now determined to ultimately repeal the PPPFA and its associated regulations and introduce a more flexible preferential procurement framework that is responsive to government objectives. In this regard, the Preferential Procurement Policy Framework Act will be repealed by the Public Procurement Act. The Public Procurement Bill is now going through the different government stakeholders' engagement processes before it is tabled in Parliament. This is targeted for early 2017. In the interim, government is working on regulations that will improve the PPPFA to make them more responsive to the economic transformation imperatives. One of the key deliverables will be the 30 set aside for small businesses, which will be compulsory for all big contracts. We urge you to engage the National Treasury and the Small Business Development Department to ensure that the views of black business are taken into account into the drafting of the new procurement bill and in amending the procurement regulations. Government has also introduced the new Black Industrialist program. We introduced this program following discussions with the Black Business Council, where we agreed that it is not sufficient for black business people to be passive shareholders only in big companies. They need to enter the manufacturing sector and own factories and other production facilities. It is important for the business today to spread their wings, given the fact that they are operating at an environment different from our pioneers. They can now establish businesses wherever they feel like. They can own big factories, not just butchers and corner shops. They can open business anywhere in the country, and therefore they must take advantage. Only then can we say we are transferring or expanding the ownership of the means of production to the black majority. In its first year of rollout, which is still in progress, the Black Industrialist Program has managed to approve 22 black industrialist projects with a total value of 1.2 billion rand and over 1,000 direct jobs supported. In an attempt to facilitate access to markets for black industrialists, we have signed partnerships with a number of original equipment manufacturers that are interested in participating in the Black Industrialist Program. We have to give practical meaning to the pledge we made during our struggle for liberation, that we will never consider our mission complete and our liberation achieved if the people of our country are still not free from economic exclusion and deprivation. We urge you to support the Department of Small Business Development to ensure that it delivers its mandate of promoting a thriving small business sector in our country. Our vision is to see the revival of the township economy, not at the same level where it was, above that, thriving, changing the townships into something bigger than the township. In other words, into big suburbs. Those corner shops that made many of our big name pioneers must be revived and supported so that they grow even bigger. Many provincial economic development departments are making that goal a priority. This also includes our determination to support informal traders who most of the time fall foul of municipal regulations and bylaws. We need to find a way to help them earn a living while also respecting the municipal regulations. Also important is the need to register all our informal traders. We cannot have mushrooming businesses all over without knowing who the traders are, including those from neighboring states or sister countries in the continent and beyond. This is one of the key projects of our Interministerial Committee on Migration. We also want to see a thriving rural economy. Women, in particular, in rural areas, must form cooperatives to sell their agricultural produce, crafts, or any other income-generating activity. This is important as it will make our people self-sufficient and not dependent on government only. It will also enable government to provide support. Compatriots, tonight is about celebration. It is about celebrating the achievements of our compatriots against all odds without a sympathetic and supportive government on our side. Through the actions of these pioneers and leaders in business, we are able to motivate young people today. We say to our youth, if these pioneers could achieve their goals in a climate of institutionalized racism and suppression, you can do it better with a supportive government on your side. We salute you. We salute you all on your outstanding achievements. You have proven that black people are capable in business. You have made the country truly proud. We are happy here today that we have remembered you. Happy that our business brothers today have thought of recognizing you and therefore indicating the respect they have on you. You were engaged in economic struggle to liberate us from economic exploitation. It is fitting, therefore, that the country remembers you. The country recognizes your effort and contribution to the liberation of our country. For politics and economy goes together. You were engaged on the struggle to liberate us from poverty and hunger. Together, we will continue to build a prosperous South Africa, taking your advice and experience. Thank you very much, Sipho, for spearheading this. It is one of the best that this country must do, to come together, to celebrate, to feel good about amaqhawe akithi ayibambe phambili eyomzabalazo wezomnotho. Thank you very much.
That was President Jacob Zuma speaking at the Black Business Tribute Dinner in Sandton tonight, honouring black businessmen who rose and succeeded despite what was going on during the Apartheid era. So that's a wrap from Sandton.
Indeed. All right.
There are numerous threads in the weave of history, many stories to unfold in the telling of the changes that affect the fabric of a society. Stories of great leadership and events are celebrated, commemorated, receiving their just and due accolade and appreciation. And yet, there are some that remain written in the margins. There are people who wait longer for the value of their contributions to be discerned. Tonight, we trace the threads of those whose talents laid foundations on which economic development depends. Tonight, we pay tribute to South Africa's black business pioneers.
Niyababona? Do you see them? Do you see them? Niyababona now? These are black entrepreneurs and their families. Yes, posing for their family portrait. Can get flesh, 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 and flesh! And a portrait to hang in the office. CEO, chairman of the board. Well, CEO was not a term used back then, was it? It was more like a
managing director.
Yes, they called it MD. Or just the boss. A good enough title in those days.
Those days? When, you might ask? What days are we talking about? The turn of the century, that's when. No, we're not talking about this century. We're not talking about millennials here. I'm talking about the early years of the 20th century. Yes, the very early years. And the late years of the 19th century, too. Surely not. I mean, that's what you're thinking. Surely not. I mean, who ever heard of black business people before BEE? Onyashega, you laugh. Oh, well, let me tell you. It's all but a forgotten history.
These are black entrepreneurs, black professionals, and self-made business success stories too.
Yes, people with a vision, with an understanding of money
and business,
and what it takes to make the economy tick.
And that being simple, the drive to put the vision into action,
and the meticulousness to make it pay.
And that's what the business is all about.
That's what it's always been about.
Yes,
man.
In
the start of the 20th century,
there
were many black people who were starting and running their own businesses. I'm talking about successful businesses. And they could see opportunities from afar. The one thing they were not afraid of, black people was competition. The one thing they were not afraid of, black people was competition. Black person was not afraid of competition. Diabule. You see, they were not blind to the opportunities that industrialization was bringing. And, like in any market, they were ready to compete, to provide produce and transport to the burgeoning markets that fed the hungry cities, and organizing and providing services for the rapidly increasing industrial workforces. I mean, they were providing teaching for their children, spiritual support, and legal services to their peers. Yeah. And like in any market, they were they were a part of an emerging middle class. So what happened? I mean, I hear you ask this. I mean, what happened? I mean, why did their enterprises not flourish? Why were their stories wiped from the pages of history?
Yep. History certainly turned the cruel page. But let us read it now. Let us read it with open eyes. Let us see clearly what it was that thwarted their development. And let us try to discern a mark that they indeed left. Yes. There, in the pages. There in the pages as a trail for others later to rediscover and to follow.
Yes. Mm-hmm. You see, it wasn't any economy, you see. Mm-hmm. It wasn't an economy they innocently believed was open and free to compete. Ngokuthembana. Ibingekho njalo. It was an economy from which they were excluded through a series of ever-increasing laws and practices biased against them. Ukuthi bahlukanise. Ingabaniki indawo for black business people to operate. Yes. Black business people were systematically excluded from the economy. Black people with African descent, of mixed race, of Indian and Asian too, to varying degrees based on the vagaries of race discrimination.
No. It was not an economy that would be fairly contested. Not an economy that would provide equitable beneficiation to all.
It was an economy that would train and train the exploits of those it exploited. And only those who believed it was their birthright alone of European descent.
And their laws were there to enforce it. There was no such thing as a black boss no more. There was only boss. And despite all of this, the spirit of black entrepreneurship survived. And it is this thread that we discern through pages of time. It is this thread that later became a woven pattern again. Fabric of enterprise in the black communities. In that middle decade of that century of pain, struggle, resistance, and ultimately liberation.
Ladies and gentlemen, starters will now be served.